While Rebecca's getting the slideshow set up, I want to welcome everyone. Thanks for being here. And you're welcome anytime to put any questions you have or any situations you're dealing with in the chat. And we will circle back toward the end if we don't answer your questions along the way. And if you're watching this later, you can email Rebecca or I if you have questions. And we're going to go through information and then, like I said, come back to questions. But if things come up, just go ahead and put them in the chat, and that way we can kind of be tracking what information you're looking for throughout.
Awesome. Thank you, Jen. Thanks for jumping in while I figured out all the tech. So, hello, everybody, and welcome. My name is Rebecca Thompson Hitt, and I am um, I'm working on this right now. So, I am a transition specialist, relationship expert. This is the thing that I sit around and think about all the time, and as how can we have better relationships? And when something happens unexpectedly, what do we do? And so this has come out of some of my own experiences recently after going through two back-to-back hurricanes. I've been living in Mexico for the last 5 years, and I moved back to Florida and rented a place in August. And then September and October, I had hurricanes. So welcome back. So it's um it's one of those things, though, that has been really eye-opening for me and a really good reminder of this information that's really needed for everybody. We all need this information, whether you just went through a hurricane or not. But overwhelming things happen in families all the time and as individuals. And I was talking to Jen earlier and saying, this whole year, I think I have gone into survival for one reason or another, and then had to like figure out how to get my way back out of it. And so it's been great practice. 2024 has not at all been what I expected, but it's been full of opportunities for me to grow and heal even more deeply. So, we're going to be talking today about strategies to support individuals, couples, families after overwhelming events. We're going to be looking at tools that you can use to support yourself or to support someone else. We're going to be looking at the body, the emotions, and the thoughts, and how those interact with one another in these kinds of overwhelming events. We're also going to be looking at how do we talk to children about the story of what happened so that it's a healing experience for them. And then we're going to be sharing some resources for support that may be helpful for you now or in the future. So that is an overview, and then we'll answer questions is the last thing. So that is the overview of what we're going to be doing today. We're going to be talking about boundaries. That's also a really huge piece that we're looking at a lot in our SOAR school right now. It's so um, it's so woven into everything that we're talking about right now that it also feels really important to bring that into when unexpected things happen. Where do boundaries go? How does that fit in? So I am Rebecca Thompson Hitt. I'm the founder and executive director of the Consciously Parenting Project. And Consciously Parenting started in 2007. So it's been a long time that I've been doing this, working with families, doing groups, doing trainings. And I love talking about relationships and how to support people. This is what I do, and it's who I am. And I am here with Jen Girardi. So Jen and I have been working together. I don't even know. How long has it been now? It's no concept of time. 7, 8 years?
7, maybe something like that. Yep.
Yeah, yeah. So Jen went through my 2-year training program and has jumped into membership support. And it's been really great working with Jen. She has a wealth of experience as well. So this is perfect for us. Anything you want to say about yourself, Jen?
Hi, I'm Jen Girardi. I support unconventional humans to lead deeply fulfilling lives, which is a way of saying that my goal is for each and every one of you to live a life in which you thrive, that fits you uniquely, and where you and the people who are important to you get your needs met and feel deeply connected, because that is the birthright of every human. So we're going to talk about some of the ways that we do that today. And like Rebecca said, I have actually 3 years of training with her, as well as now lots of years of experience supporting parents and individuals, and many years of experience with my own parenting and with kids. And I live in Colorado now in the US. I used to live in Florida though, and had a number of hurricane evacuations when I lived there. So I I do have some visceral experience of what you're all going through or have gone through recently. So yeah, I'm really excited to share some of the lessons that we've learned along the way.
Thanks so much, Jen. Okay, so I want to talk about survival mode because I think there's a lot of conversation about survival mode. I'm in survival. I'm in survival. Yes, yes. So the easiest definition when we're talking about survival is fight, flight, or freeze. And that is something that's happening in our nervous system. It is not a conscious decision. I'm going to freeze now. I'm going to fight you now. I am leaving. I am running away. It is an involuntary, okay, time to go. Or there is a bunch of energy that comes up to support your body in whatever is needed. And this is really important. And I think, and I actually recorded a video on this because I think I've given a lot of, yeah, survival, whatever. Yes, I'm in survival. Oh, I'm in survival again. Oh, I'm in survival again. And there's a lot of the stories that are told about survival that are the unrealistic things that most of us will probably never experience. Like you're in the wilderness and there's a bear. Or, in Florida is, oh, there's an alligator on your doorstep, which happens, but it's pretty rare. I mean, most of the time it doesn't happen. So, but I think that what I really, really felt in this series of storms that we just had is the importance of these survival mechanisms in present time, in 2024. The importance of being able to fight or leave or hold really still. And in these events, there were places where we were wondering if we needed to leave. And we were kind of running around saying, okay, do I need to get the cat? What needs to happen? Do we need to evacuate right now? Because the water was coming in. But by the time you see the water, which is what our weather guy said, by the time you see the water, you can't really go. We knew we were safe in the space. We didn't know if our car was going to be safe. And it turned out to be, but all of our neighbors lost their cars. So it was a real threat. And so when we're in a situation where there's actual threat, or when I get to the next slide, perceived threat, these forces in our bodies mobilize to keep us safe. And it's important. The challenge becomes when we get stuck with our nervous systems, either in on or in off. And I'm going to talk in a minute about what that might look like or feel like in your body. So, survival mode when you're stuck in on can be racing thoughts, irritability, angry outbursts, inability to concentrate, inability to sit still. So again, on is great. And I saw it at the end when the storm ended and we were all of the neighbors, they were all assessing their cars and trying to open up the doors and trying to save them. But we were all sweeping mulch that had gone all the way up the house, and getting the mulch off of the driveway and using our physical energy. The next day I came back and because we left, came back and we had probably a couple of inches of water still in the first floor. And so use the energy to move that water out. That was a great use of on. And so it's great for those kinds of things. But if you get stuck in on, then you may have trouble sleeping or digesting your food. There may be nightmares, or you may start gravitating towards addictive substances to calm yourself down. And so it's great for bursts. It's really not meant for a longer term experience in the body. So off, and what I've also seen now that it's been a couple of weeks since the first storm, and it's been, I don't know, almost 2 weeks now since the second storm, is a lot of people who were on, their nervous systems were going and going, and they were doing and doing and doing, have flipped over into this off. Now, there is a very functional part of off that is rest and digest. It is important that after we've exerted ourselves a lot, that we let ourselves move over into that slower space. But if we're stuck in off and we're in survival mode and in off, it can look like sleeping too much. And despite that, still not feeling rested, lacking energy and focus, numbness, not feeling anything, apathy, hopelessness, headaches, not eating, inability or it being difficult to move or to do basic self-care tasks. So this is when you know you're not just in I'm resting, but I'm kind of stuck. So there's the two sides, on, stuck in on, off. And then in the middle here is like a functional place of being able to adapt. I need more energy now, or I need to rest right now, but you're still in your range of presence, your window of presence. You're still present with yourself. But it's when we flip over into these other sides that we might need some additional support. So I want to define an overwhelming event because, and I said this earlier, it is a real or perceived threat to, and I can't see it because you all are on top of it, life, property, safety, security, and even predictability. So and this is actually a picture of my back porch, I do not live near the water. I cannot see water normally where I live. And the water, I'm at 10 feet above sea level, and we estimate the surge was probably about 11 and a half feet because I'm pretty far inland, actually. And so this water is the water that came up and then flooded my downstairs. And there you can see apartments, all of those people were home and all of them lost their cars. So there was a real threat. But for people who maybe like my sons were watching the hype, trying to get ready for this storm for a week, and then they never lost power. They didn't have any water, but there was a perceived threat to life, to property, to safety, to security, to predictability. So we don't have to have experienced it. And honestly, if you're watching this stuff on television or you're reading stories on Facebook or whatever social media platforms you use, or you're reading the news and you're hearing these stories, you may also have a survival response going on for you right now. And so it's recognizing that even if you weren't there, it's a perceived threat that our bodies are experiencing. So overwhelming events are often too much or too fast or unexpected or not enough of something that was needed. It creates overwhelm. So the big question now is there still a real or perceived threat? So that is for people who are still without housing right now, or people who lost their jobs or their cars. There's a real threat right now, and it's still happening. So I want to make sure that we're talking about there are different situations. There are going to be people who they still have threat, even though the storm is technically over. And there still needs to be action. There still needs to be mobilization. And action absorbs anxiety. I really love that. Action is what needs to happen. And then know what is needed. So there's not a threat, real or perceived right now. What do you need to do to help the body out of survival mode? And we need to look at the mind, the body, and the emotion to do that. So, so if yes, something is needed, these are the people who may not have stable housing or other things. It's the I love this. This is the survival response of find and fix. And this is ancient. This is I'm hungry. I'm going to go find some food. I'm going to go find some berries. It is a survival response. It is mobilization. It is doing something. And so, and I see this a lot in the communities that I'm a part of, the people who have a downed tree and they're looking for a resource for somebody to help them. So using that energy to create a safe nook for your family. If you are not safe right now, use the survival energy to call FEMA or ask someone to call FEMA for you. Locate new housing, locate local resources, or to bring in layers of support to help with meals or childcare or removing of trees. I saw a post yesterday. It was really, really beautiful. And I've seen a lot of these. It's been very helpful for me to see. There was a gentleman who posted on behalf of his elderly neighbor who had a tree that had fallen onto her house. And she was like 92 years old, was still living on her own, and she didn't have the resources to do it. So this guy, this neighbor, was finding strategies for her, was finding resources, and he posted, "Can anybody help me with this tree? I'm willing to pay for it. I'm willing to help. I want to," and so he's using his fix response. He's mobilizing that energy to help himself and to help someone else. So boundaries are also really important here, and I'm going to let Jen talk about that.
Yeah. Yeah. So the idea we're talking about here, and we'll flesh out more parts of the boundaries as we go through other slides, but is the idea that you've got to put on your own oxygen mask first. And boundaries are how we do that. So it's normal if you're facing a real or perceived threat, whether it's a hurricane or it's a dog lunging at your kid on the sidewalk, like anything. It's normal to not have enough space, enough emotional energy to deal with yourself and your needs and also everybody else and everybody else's needs because we are human. So that's true even for me and Rebecca with many, many years of practice. That does not make us superhuman. It hopefully makes it a little bit easier to tell how much we can handle and what is beyond what we can deal with in this moment. So if in this moment you are needing to do survival things to get you and your family safe, you probably don't also have a lot of energy to deal with, say, your child's like fears about what's happening. And so putting on your own oxygen mask first means putting the boundaries where they need to go so that your needs are met well enough so that you can recover and do what needs to happen for these basic survival needs so that then you can have space to come back and address whatever's happening for the other important people. And if it's like a child, it means coming back to support them. If it's an adult, it may be you go find support from somebody else. I can't be that person right now. So I have a story to illustrate this that is about something that's less overwhelming than a hurricane, but still overwhelming in the moment, so that you can see what this looks like in practice. So over the summer, I made the decision to start trying to bike commute to more things, to be out of the car more of the time. And so there was a day when I was out, I was on my commute home. It's only like a mile and a half, but it's all on roads. And I got a flat tire on the trailer that my kids are in. So I'm on the side of a road, there's cars going past, and I've got to get my kids out of the trailer in order to be able to get to the wheel and repair the flat in order to get us home. And, I've got a problem I need to solve that needs my time and energy right then. And this is also the first time I've ever gotten a bike flat in my life. And so I'm a little overwhelmed and I'm like, I don't know what to do. I have this toolkit in my bag, but I've literally never opened it. So I'm trying to like find instructions online and deal with my own feelings of panic about this and, fix the tire and get us home. And my 9-year old is the kind of child who, if he picks up any kind of stress or anxiety in the field, he panics. And when he panics, he wants to have like constant interaction to stay in connection and contact. That's what makes him feel like he's going to be okay. And that usually comes out as like a million questions. So he's standing on the side of the road trying to ask me a million questions about what's happening and what I'm doing while I'm trying to like read something to try to figure out how to fix it. And it's like my brain cannot do both of those things at the same time. So what I told him was, I get it. This is stressful. You don't understand what's going on. You're worried. I'm stressed. I understand. And right now, I need to fix the tire and I need to get us home. You're going to be okay, but I need you to just be quiet and stay out of the road and let me take care of this. And when we get home, then I can answer all your questions. And I try to go back to fixing the tire and he starts again. And so I had to repeat, when we get home, I will answer all your questions. And I had to repeat it, I believe, a third time. And then he, you know, started entertaining himself and left me alone long enough to get the tire fixed enough to get us home. And then we get in the door, we take off our shoes, took a breath, and then said, okay, we're home now. We're safe. Bike's fine. Let's talk about it. And what I want you to hear there is I gave myself the boundary I needed to make the space to deal with the overwhelming event. And then when I had the space, I came back to support the experience of my child in that moment. But I set the boundary at a place where I could set it with kindness and with empathy for the fact that he's stressed. He's never experienced this either. He doesn't know what's going on. In his little 9-year-old brain, we probably were stuck on the side of that road forever. And, so I'm acknowledging that this is overwhelming for him too, while also acknowledging that right now is not the time for that. And then coming back to it when there is space.
Yeah, and that's really important. We're going to talk about that when we talk about children. Um, but just hold on to that little piece. It's important that we come back, but it's important that we say when we don't have the space. Thanks, Jen. Okay, so so we're not in survival, there is no real or perceived threat right now. What do we need to do to move the body out of survival? And so we need to support the body, we need to support our emotional selves, and then we need to look at our thoughts. And it's important that it's in that order. If we start with the thoughts, which is what many therapists do, is all right, cognitive behavioral. All right, we're going to look at your thoughts, we're going to look at your behaviors, but we don't actually get to what's underneath it. And so we just keep going with the thoughts. So there's more thoughts. So there's more thoughts because we haven't shifted what's happening in the body. And if you start with the emotions, often there is a tendency for those feelings to just get bigger and bigger. And we don't necessarily feel better just by being in the feelings. It really takes the thoughts, the feelings, the body sensations together, integration, which we're going to talk about in a little bit as well. But we start with the body because if we can shift the state of what's happening in our body, in our nervous system, then the other things shift. And so it's different than what a lot of what I've experienced even in my own healing work. But this is what I kept coming back to, especially this past year in 2024, the year of survival mode for Rebecca. Okay, and getting out of survival mode over and over and over again, which I did. So supporting the body is about signaling to the body that you're safe. This is the body's language. This isn't, I'm safe, I'm safe, I'm safe, I'm safe, I'm safe. If only it worked that way. It doesn't help. It can be helpful to have something else going on in your head, but your body doesn't really speak that language. Your body speaks language through the eyes, through your breath. And I'm going to actually guide you through a couple of short exercises here that you can experience this for yourself, if it feels right for you. So I want to invite you, we're going to do something with the eyes because one of the things that happens when we are stuck, so when we're stuck in survival, either on or off, our eyes also tend to fix in the center. This is part of protecting ourselves from something that is immediately in front of you. And I couldn't help this morning when I was at 3 o'clock in the morning when I was awake, with ideas of things I wanted to talk about, when I was thinking about the eyes and that fixation, because I've been doing a lot of these exercises, is wow, I've spent so much time on Zoom. And how much time do we spend on our phone with this fixed gaze? Like, oh my gosh, we're all in survival from this like physiological thing that we keep doing. So I have a solution. And it's really it's amazing for me. It's been really it's helped me to broaden my field of vision in every sense. It helps from that fixated place to expanding literally your field of vision, because when you are safe, you have the safety to look around you. When you are not safe, you need to fix your eyes in one space. So this is about inviting your eyes to move. It may feel better to close your eyes. I've been only doing this with my eyes closed. So if it feels right for you and your body, you can close your eyes and just take a nice deep breath. And then letting your eyes just look forward. And then letting your eyes move to the right to about 3 or 4 o'clock. And just breathe with your eyes moved over. And you may not be able to keep them there for very long. And so if you feel the need to move your eyes back, let yourself do that. Don't force yourself. And just breathe and just let your eyes move from maybe 3 to 4. Maybe you just need to leave it at 3. 4 is too much. But letting your eyes expand your field of vision, even with your eyes closed, you're inviting and you're communicating to your body that it's safe enough to do this, to move your gaze to the right. And then when you're feeling complete with that, let your eyes move back to center and take a breath and just let yourself feel what that was like for you. And then when you're ready, allow your eyes to move to the left. You can do this without moving your head, or maybe you move your head a little bit. And letting your eyes rest at 9 or 8. It's interesting. I've been doing this for a couple of weeks now, and the left is much harder for me for some reason. So just observe, just notice, and breathe. And then letting your eyes move back to center. And then take a nice deep breath. And then let your eyes drift so that your focus is right behind your eyes. So you're expanding your vision even behind you, and then to behind your head. And then breathe. And then bringing your awareness back to in front of you. And take a nice deep breath. Just let yourself integrate that experience and notice if anything feels different or anything has shifted. And then open your eyes. And maybe taking a moment and looking around the space that you're in and look behind you. Look over your shoulder. It's probably pretty boring back there. And then back to center, and then turning your head and looking behind you the other direction. So supporting your body to recognize that it's safe. You can also focus on your breath, and this one is really easy. So if you take your hand and put it on your chest and another hand on your belly, if this feels good to you, if it feels okay, take a breath in and then breathe all the way and expand your belly. And then breathe out and bring your belly all the way in. Because we're communicating to your body, it's safe to take a full breath. Let's do one more. All the way in, expanding your belly, and then all the way out, breathing in, pulling your belly in. And then the last one is a hug. And if you have someone you can get a hug from, great, get a hug. In completing stress cycles, they say to hold someone else and rest into each other for about 30 seconds. But we can do a self hug. So, and if you can bring it up onto the shoulder joints and feel the kind of pressure that feels good to your body right now. And it might be you need a really firm hug right now to really feel yourself. It might be just gentle, but feel what feels good for you right now. And maybe you feel a little impulse to rock a little bit, maybe side to side or front to back, activating your vestibular system. Yeah. And then just checking in and notice how that feels. And if you want to keep your hug going, you're welcome to. If it feels good to release it, you can release it. The other thing that can be really helpful after something stressful is over is if there weren't movements that you were able to complete at the time. So, for example, when we had the floodwaters come in, we were thinking we maybe need to leave. So, a flight response may have been necessary. And I was running around looking for, excuse me, um, running around looking for my cat carrier, looking for my cat who was freaked out at the time and also running. And but we didn't leave. And so my body didn't get to complete that movement. So afterwards, I let myself, just even sitting, let myself run and move my legs. And so you can try that now too. Let yourself move your legs in whatever way. It might be slow, might be fast. Let yourself move your legs. Maybe you need to stand up. Let yourself stand up if that feels good. And also, maybe even moving your arms. So, can you allow yourself to complete the things that didn't happen? Maybe you wanted to run, maybe you wanted to fight somebody. Um, but moving your body to complete those movements can really help. And then regular healthy meals, regular sleep, regular movement. When all else goes away, if we can come back to those core things of giving our body regular food, because that says, okay, we're okay, we've got food. Regular sleep, I know what to expect, even if everything else is different, and regular movement. And that's not necessarily exercise. It could be just walking in place. It could be doing gentle stretching, something, but at a regular time that you're doing it. And this is where boundaries may be needed. And so, Jen?
Yeah, so the piece we're talking about here with boundaries is and this is true both for this context of you're not currently in the threat state and trying to move out of survival. It's also true if you are currently still dealing with the overwhelming situation. And the idea is that the foundation of being okay is the physical body being okay. And that means these things like regular healthy meals, regular sleep, regular movement, as well as what we're talking about next, which is the connection and emotional regulation parts. And if those foundational things are not getting met, then nothing else we do can make us feel like it's safe to move out of survival. And so when we're dealing with those things, if those things are challenging to achieve, either because of being in a survival state, either because that's necessary or it's not currently, if achieving regular eating, sleeping, moving, and connection are difficult, then adding on other things is likely to make them even more difficult. And so one of the things to think about is, we're thinking about a boundary here as saying yes or no to other things outside of our own selves and needs. So saying yes or no to a play date or going out with a friend or taking a trip or dog sitting or whatever it might be, if we're thinking about whether or not to say yes or to say no, thinking about if I say yes to this other thing, is it going to compromise my ability to get regular healthy meals, regular sleep, regular movement, and my connection needs met? And if the answer is yes, if I say yes to that, it's going to compromise my ability to get my basic needs met, then that's a place where there needs to be a boundary, where there needs to be a like, and no, I'm sorry, I can't do that right now.
Yeah, thank you, Jen. And for some of us, boundaries are hard in the best of times. And sometimes these situations where it is required helps us to work through things that are that make that hard for us. So it's sometimes it's that fire that helps us to do something that's difficult. So emotional support. So now we've got the body, at least we're looking at the body. We're considering the body. We're starting there as the foundation. Now we can look at emotional support. And so it's really important to share the story of what happened. And I have now in numerous ways, I've written about what's happened. I have spoken about what's happened. I haven't done a healing story circle, but we haven't had ours yet. So healing story circles are another way, but speaking to someone who can really hear you and listen, is key to this. Expressing the feelings. And I posted on my Facebook page, and one of the women who is in my local community what commented because I was asking, what do you do in survival? What's happening for you in survival? And she said, I'm stuffing all my feelings because I just can't. And she was really more in off, and I can't. And so it's finding ways to express and acknowledge the feelings that happened. What was it like? You may not have been able to when you're running around. When you're running around, you may not have been able to feel what you're feeling or feel the fear or feel the anger at the unfairness or whatever it is. But making space afterwards is really important. And so this is from my Arch of Healing. This is from my fourth book. It's Never Too Late to Heal. It's never too late to publish the book. It is almost done and it will be out in November for pre-sales, so it's coming. But we begin by just acknowledging what actually happened. And if we can say that in words, okay, we decided to stay for the hurricane because it seemed like we were high enough with the surge forecast that we were going to be okay. And our house is made for it. So even if we do get a surge, it's meant for the water to go through. And I didn't expect it when the water came. So, and it was really scary. And then I saw really scary things after that. So, acknowledging that and then expressing the feelings that go along with it. Then it's resourcing and regulating. So some of these things that we just did can be resourcing, like the hug can be a resource. Going outside, in between the storms, I started walking. There was a place that I could go and walk because my regular park was flooded and closed. And I found another place to go be in nature. And then after that, I didn't make it outside. Um, before I left. So, but finding those things that are resourcing to you and then connecting the dots of the story. Is there something that you need to learn from that story? There may or may not be. And I think, especially in these more acute situations, completing stress cycles is more valuable. And so, my favorite way to complete a stress cycle is this one, and it's taking in a nice deep breath. If you want to do it with me, you can. And then breathing out, and then a short breath in, and then squeezing all of your muscles and squeezing the air out of your diaphragm. So you just keep squeezing until you can't hold it anymore. And then you take in a nice breath. And you don't have to know what stress cycle you're completing. You don't have to know what thing was stressful. It's just let's release the tension that's in the body that you're still holding on to that you may not be aware of. So there are other ways to complete stress cycles. That's just the one that I wanted to talk about today. Healing is about integrating the thoughts, the feelings, the body sensations. And we're going to talk more about that when we talk about children. So I'm just going to take a moment for this one because many times when we address the body and we address the emotional aspects, we create space to tell the story, the thoughts naturally shift. This is what we do in healing story circles. What's happening in your body? What's the story? What do you need to be heard? And getting the reflection back is often what we need to shift the thoughts. And so that's why we don't start with the thoughts in a healing story circle. We start with the story. We start with the right brain. We talk about all of the things that are there for us, and we get reflection back. So but if there are still, and sometimes there are after healing story circle, or after you've shared, or after you've worked on the body pieces and the emotional pieces, there might be a recurring thought like, oh my gosh, I lost my car. Why didn't I move my car? And I know a lot of my neighbors are going through that right now. My car was parked really close to theirs, and mine barely made it. I mean, I had water up to the middle of my tire. But I didn't lose my car, but they did. So they may be having thoughts about, I should have moved it. I should have pushed harder or tried harder to find a safe place to take my car. And so when those thoughts happen, we're out of the body. We're in our head spinning somewhere. So it's bringing your awareness back into your body. And is there emotion that you didn't get to complete? So it might be, okay, I'm going to go and I'm going to find where I can take my car if it happens again and complete the motion, complete the thing that didn't happen. Sometimes writing out the thoughts or giving them space to be seen can be helpful. And then what are the feeling states that go with the thoughts? So again, bringing yourself back into the body and then allowing yourself to express those feelings. So maybe you're feeling despair at the fact that now you don't have transportation, because I know that that's the case for a lot of people. And when they had to evacuate for the second hurricane, there was panic because I don't have a car. How do I leave? How do I do this? And so allowing yourself to express the feelings for them to move is important. And completing stress cycles, again, can be really helpful. Again, let's come back to the body. What does the body need? So I'm going to take a pause and just give you a moment. We've talked about the different ways that we can have our survival mode show up. We've looked at some tools to support the body, the emotions, and the thoughts. And now we're going to look at children and story sharing. One of the things that I keep seeing in the local groups, and it's not an accident, it's a lot of people who are saying, my 8-year-old all of a sudden is really sassy. And is this normal? Does this happen for other 8-year-olds? But it's like every single age group, all of these parents are saying these things about their kids. Their behaviors have changed, but they are not connecting it with the storm and what happened because it's over. There's very much a thought in our society in general that once something is physically over, the hurricane left, Milton, disintegrated somewhere. So it's over, but it's not necessarily over if you are still in a survival place or if your body is still in survival. And our children show their story through their behaviors and their body. And so look at their behaviors to see how they're doing. So it might not look like, Mom, that hurricane was so scary and I thought I was going to die, even if they did. But you might see that they aren't sleeping well or there are changes in their toileting, even if they've been potty trained for a long time, or eating, or they've got separation anxiety all of a sudden, and you haven't had separation anxiety for years, or they can't sit still, or they're zoning out on tech, and or they're despondent when they can't have a device, or they're having really big feelings, or they're being really, really good because we missed that one. We missed that one. Or maybe they're crying more, or maybe they're trying to take care of you. So we need to look at the way that our children behave and recognize that the story is going to be shown that way. And when we stand back at it, then we look at what happened for them. So what was it like for them? And I remember when my children were little and we had, if Jen, you probably remember Charlie, Francis, and Jean. Were you there for those? No, you weren't. Anyway, I had two small children. I had a 9-month-old and I had a 5-year-old who had just started kindergarten. I think they were about these ages here. And so we had to evacuate twice. And it never really occurred to me. I was so preoccupied myself with what it was like that it never occurred to me that they were having an experience of this as well. It never occurred to me that some of the behaviors that I might have been seeing from, especially my oldest, but definitely my baby as well, might have had something to do with having to leave your house and not knowing if you're coming back, or having to leave your house and your parents are distraught because they don't know if they're coming back. And so looking at it from their perspective, even if your house is now fine, but if you evacuated, we need to understand that there was an impact. So then we need to speak out loud what happened slowly. So go back and talk about what happened. And when you do, allow space for their feelings and for their body to complete movements. Oh, I see your legs are moving. That part was really scary and you probably wanted to run away. Let's pretend we're running away together and run as fast. Oh, can you run faster? And they might need to move physically in the room. Maybe you need to take them to a space where they can actually run, or maybe they need to hit something, or maybe they need a cuddle. Maybe they need to come get a hug if they're older. But come back. This is where Jen was talking earlier. This is where you also come back if you didn't have space while you were evacuating or while you're cleaning up the disaster or the mess. Come back and give them space to listen if you didn't have space to listen earlier. Anything you want to add there, Jen?
Yeah, I just want to make sure that everyone hears that it's never too late to come back. Because I know some of us who have all the wonderful intentions to be super present for our kids feel really bad about it when we don't have the space in the moment. And we feel like we're doing some kind of damage in not listening immediately. And so I really, really want everyone to hear that it is never too late to come back and say, gosh, that thing was really big. And I couldn't listen to it at the time.
Yeah. And it's also true of like it can be months later, weeks later, months later. It's not too late. It may take you some time, especially if there's been a lot of loss, to have the space to come back and listen. And even if your kids are older, don't discount it. we all as adults have big experiences of anything that's overwhelming. Don't assume that your older kids are okay. Even your young adults, don't assume that they don't have something that they need support around also. Yeah.
Yeah, and even if your important people are adults, you know, partners or friends or
Yeah.
uh yeah. And some of this can be more mutual than just you holding space if you're doing it with another adult. But all of us, everybody needs space to process the big things that we experience.
Yes. So, and if it was overwhelming for you, you may need more support to be listened to before you can listen to them. And so do that. Find those resources locally, online, Healing Story Circle. Um, yeah, yeah. Looks like,
Yeah, and
go ahead.
the bringing in layers of support, you know, for you and also for other people if needed. You know, if you're really seeing that like you're going to be dealing with rebuilding your house for months and you're going to be dealing with a lot of stress because of that for a long time, and your kids are having a hard time, you know, there probably needs to be support, layers of support for you, but there also might need to be layers of support for them. And it's also okay, especially when we're talking about other adults and it's not your responsibility to hold all of the space for them because they're not children. Then this also may need to be a place where you say, hey, you can go get some support from not me because I don't have room to be that layer of support right now. Yeah.
Right.
And I also want to let you all know as we're coming towards the end here that we have opportunities for you to get some of those layers of support. That's one of the things that we have to offer you. So um, yeah, we'll move
Yeah.
into that soon here, but yeah, stick around for that
Hmm.
because we're not just going to tell you go get support and then turn you loose to not know where to do that.
Yeah. I was having a little computer issue. I had to close a window. So, okay. So, an example of a child with a story. Um, and I had it, and then my computer started flickering. Um, so it can be um, when your child has experienced something, really thinking about what they experienced and talking about it through their eyes, thinking about what it might. Oh, that's weird. Okay. Um, Thinking about what it might have been like for them. And so, um, if a child experienced evacuation, I'm just going to go with that because it's less traumatic and there's fewer layers. Um, Talking and saying, okay, yeah, there was the storm that was coming and we needed to leave. And I remember seeing you look really scared and you didn't know what you needed to take. And so you remember you got your favorite stuffed animal, you got your stuffed animal and you were holding the animal when we were getting in the car and I saw you were really scared. I saw the tears. And then you pause and you give space for the feelings to move. And they might say, "Yeah, scary." And if you start feeling something while your child is expressing feelings, let yourself feel it. Don't try to stop it because it stops the movement of all of the energy. And so allow it, allow yourself to feel too. Yeah, it was really scary. Can I hold you? And it might be something that didn't happen at the time. So at the time, you may not have had the capacity as a parent to hold them in that moment while you're evacuating and trying to navigate traffic. But later, you can complete that movement for them and for you. Yeah, you know what? I really wish when you were so upset in the back seat that I could have gone and sat with you, but I couldn't then, but I can now. And that is the power of the healing that we can do with one another. We may not be able to change what happened then, but we can change what happens right now. What I really wanted was this. If I could change something, what would I change? What would you change if you could change something? And giving them a little bit of autonomy and power. I would have taken all my things, not just not just my teddy bear. I would have taken everything. Okay, go get everything. Let's do it. So so that's just a basic, this is what it kind of looks like and feels like. The most important thing is those places where if something couldn't happen that you wished could have happened, that you give it the opportunity and the space for it to happen. That could be like my example of, running away and moving the energy, or in connecting in the way that you couldn't at the time. So, Jen, as Jen said, we don't want to leave you without resources. We have our Soar School that's going right now, and we'll let people come in right now to have other layers of support. We have weekly healing story circles that are part of that Soar School. My consciously parenting books may be really helpful because it's about focusing from the behavior to the relationship. So especially my first book, which is the blue one, might be really helpful if you are navigating and you are like most of us, and we're cued and trained to look at the behaviors. And so this is how we shift out of looking at the behaviors. So that book especially might be helpful, and that's available as an audiobook on my website, PDF, and a paperback on Amazon. Never Too Late to Heal, as I said, is going to be pre-sale, will be out in November, and then that book will be out in December. Cranial sacral therapy, if you have it as an option, can be really, really helpful to support the body. So if you look for someone who does cranial sacral therapy, that can be helpful. Lymph massage, lymph drainage actually is really good for shock. And if you are in the Pinellas County area, Jamie Fisher is amazing, and I'll give you her information if you'd like it. Story sharing, Little People, Big Challenges. If you want more information about sharing stories with children, and then tomorrow, there's another webinar with Tamara Yurkin on sleep and nutrition, and in terms of overwhelming events and how we can use that as a way to really support our bodies. And then Jen is offering free healing story circle. She has got a coupon code she's going to put into the chat. And that's available for anybody if you would like to come and just be able to share. Um, and or get support. Jen's also offering one-on-one sessions and a free 20-minute session. So and I will take limited new clients at this time as layer of support if you need it. So last but not least, if there are any questions, if anyone had a question that was anything written in the chat other than what we have done. Yeah. Does anyone have
Yeah,
any
so if anyone
questions?
has questions or if you have a specific situation that you're dealing with, you can put it in the chat. And I just want to let you know, I put several links in the chat for the Source School, for Rebecca's things for Healing Story Circles with me. And I have one tomorrow at 3 o'clock Eastern. That's Wednesday, the 23rd. If you're listening to this later, at 3 Eastern. So, and as of recording this, there's room for a couple more people to join that one. Sign up soon if that, if you're reading this and you're like, or listening to this and you're like, man, more support sounds like a great idea, then come get that tomorrow.
Okay, thanks.
And
Allison.
let's see.
Allison had a question.
Yeah, Allison says, what do you do if your middle grade kid is resistant to talking about it or going over the story? They either aren't in touch with their feelings or don't want to talk about it.
Right. And so it's a great question. And Oh, middle school is so challenging all by itself. And so, there's the question of what's happening in their body because they may not have words to talk about it. But there may be, wow, I'm noticing this about your body. Not middle grade. Okay, middle grade kid. Okay, grade three. Middle school is its own animal. So, but third grade, so not wanting to talk about um again, what's happening in her body? What are you seeing? And maybe seeing if you can meet her in terms of movement, rather than trying to get her to talk about something specific. Um, so that's probably where I would start to start getting things moving and like, hey, let's do some of this stuff together. Let's do the squeezes together. Let's complete some stress cycles together. Oh, that feels so good to me. Would you like to join me? You know, um, let's there's a great one with the eyes, getting the eyes to move, and it's as if you're following a butterfly. And so let's pretend that we're watching a butterfly. And so let's just start to, because if you think about it, it's still that same, if she's not willing to talk, is there a stuckness that's going on? And so is there a hyperfixation? So getting her to move her eyes might help, before instead of trying to force a story. I would start there. Yeah. Is that helpful, Allison? Yeah, great. Thank you. I can't believe she's in third grade. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
I want to add a piece of you know it, because I hear this quite often actually, that the parent is like, it's time to come back to the thing and finish it, and the kid is like, no,
No.
we're not talking about that. So it's not just your kid. And you can take a step back from like, okay, I want to talk about the hurricane, whatever the thing is. And the kid's like, we're not talking about that. I don't know what you're talking about. Everything's fine. It's great. We're never talking about the hurricane. And you can take a step back from that and talk about the not wanting to talk about the hurricane. So you can name, wow, you really don't want to talk about that. And you can, validate that experience too. It's really common to not want to talk about something big and scary. And I wonder if you are like hoping it'll just go away. You don't talk about it. And, or I wonder if it feels like it's so big and scary that if you talk about it, you won't be able to handle it. You can like name and acknowledge those pieces too. And you can also talk about, you can model for them like, that's true for me too. When I'm feeling really scared and overwhelmed, I really need to whatever, and then it's easier to talk about it. Or sometimes I don't want to talk about it, but then when I finally do, I feel so much better.
Yeah. The only
Or I
other
wonder
thing.
if there's something to be able to talk about it. Yeah.
Yeah. And that exactly is kind of where I was going is sometimes there are times of the day that are easier. Like when you're trying to put them to bed for some kids, that's the time that, they may start opening up about something or you can give an invitation. Um, some kids just have, there's a time of day where it might be an easier time. So that's also something to consider. Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for the question.
I've also found with my older kid who's about the same age that more recently, this doesn't work as well with like a really young kid, but that around that age, you can start to make the association, help them make the association between what you're seeing them do and what you suspect might be going on. Like, I'm noticing that you don't want to eat. And I've noticed that sometimes when you don't want to eat, it's because you're feeling stressed or because you're feeling worried. And so I'm wondering if that's true right now.
And don't expect an answer. If you can let go of that expectation, it helps a lot. Um, and sometimes they will, and sometimes they'll surprise you, and you can be really happy when that happens. But if you release the expectation of they're going to say something right then, because often kids will take in what you're saying, and 3 days from now or a week from now, they'll bring it back up. I had one client who was like 3 months later, she said she would say something and she said, "Oh God, I think my daughter never ever is hearing what I'm saying." But then 3 months later, she would bring it up on her own. So she did. And so this mom learned over time, her daughter did hear her, even if she didn't respond. So it's a good thing to remember as well. Yeah, it's a great question.
This
Yeah.
also may be another place where boundaries are helpful, uh, especially with kids. If there are behaviors that you're seeing that are problems for you or um, problems for someone else, like taking out their feelings on a younger sibling or destroying something in the house or um, trying to hit you, things like that. If there are behaviors that are a problem in themselves, especially if that's combined with, and they don't want to talk about it, that can be really difficult. And we can come back to, what do I need? I need to keep my body safe. I need to keep the younger sibling safe. I need to keep our home safe. And we can have, if we can have those boundaries, again, compassionately with that, I can see that you're having a really hard time and it's okay to be feeling stressed. It is not okay to hit your sister. And I'm going to help you stop. Or, we're going to take a break from playing together. Or, so like we were talking about, earlier, going back to like, what are the body needs? Are those things being met for your child? Is your child eating, sleeping, moving, connecting? And if not, can we focus on getting those needs met for them and for us and having boundaries around what is an appropriate expression of the feelings? And sometimes taking care of all of those things will create an environment in which it's easier for them to express them in a healthy way, like crying with you instead of trying to hit somebody.
Yeah. Thank you, Jen. All right. Well, just to remind you, there are resources available, and we'll be back tomorrow with another call with about nutrition and sleep and how we can use those to support the body and through overwhelming events. And if you need a healing story circle, reach out to Jen. And we're just so glad you were here. And if you are watching later, thank you. Let us know if you have questions. We are here to support you in whatever way we can. Thank you all for being here, and we'll see you hopefully tomorrow. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.